Hi friends, welcome to the Plain Fun RC channel. I'm your host, Saul. So now we're moving on to installation of the canopy. Let's take a moment and look at the plans. You can see what it is that we're going to be doing here with regards to the installation. I'll give you a rough idea. And not only are we going to be focusing on the canopy, but we're also going to be focusing on the cowling as well, just so you know. Okay. Now, the canopy, as you can see here, let's start off with that very briefly. It has scribe lines, and if you look carefully, they're a little hard to see, but you can see them there. It's a little difficult to focus in on them. Try to do what I can here, but anyway, you can see them there. It's the lines that you're using to go through and to cut. Now, you can tint the canopy. It does have instructions here on how to do it as well. Feel free to hit pause. You can actually use this technique for any clear canopy at all, any clear Butyrate canopy. I can never pronounce that name. And it does continue over here on this page as well. So feel free to use this. Now, I'm not going to tint this canopy because if I mess it up, that's it. And it's not like I can get another one since the company is long since out of business. But here are the instructions with regards to the canopy. That's what we're going to be focusing on as we go through and prepare the canopy and get it ready for mounting. And then, of course, here's your canopy mounting as well. Once again, feel free to hit pause on the video to read the instructions. At some point, I will post these instructions, by the way, in a PDF format for those that need it. Okay. And then here's our engine cowling, as I mentioned before. Here's the instructions for that as well. And for those that might be using nitro, some information there as well. Of course, we're not doing that. We're going with electric. All right, that's it for right now. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update with regards to the canopy framing, let me show you what we've got going on here. So you can see our canopy there. We have some pieces here, and they are there to provide support to the canopy itself. These are 1/16 by 5/8 inch by 14 1/4 inch long. And we're just using some thin CA. Foam safe CA is great to use because that way you don't get that frosty look. Anyway, so that's what we're doing now. And that refers to step number 1 right there for canopy framing and bracing. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to preparing the wing and the fuselage for canopy mounting while this is drying. And more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, we are continuing the process of mounting the canopy. Now, you'll notice I put a little piece right here to help fill in that triangular spot from where the wing sits, so this is nice and level. One major problem I discovered, though, you'll notice I've drawn a line. I'm going to have to remove that amount because this piece of wood is the supporting structure that's going to hold the canopy in place. And when I lay it, when I lay this down like so, across here, it's supposed to sit nice and flush the whole way across. You'll notice there's a large gap there. That's bad. That's bad. It needs to be perfectly straight and perfectly level in order to properly seat the canopy. So we got to take some wood off here. So anyway, all right, nothing that a Dremel cutting wheel can't fix. So more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update regarding the attachment of the canopy, let's talk about what we're seeing here. So right off the bat, you can see our support braces on the side dried. I tell you, I should have gone with our RC56 Canopy Glue. You can see even though it was foam safe CA, which usually does not produce any of the white marks, that is definitely not the case. You can see the white marks there, but that's not so bad. I can go through and I'm going to paint that portion anyway, so they should be almost not visible. Anyway, what we're doing right now is we've taken the canopy, we've laid it out on the plans. And let me squeeze the canopy a little bit, and you can see, if you look carefully, there's some dotted lines right there. That's where the canopy needs to be. Now the key focus here, if I may, is you'll see in the front, right there where it says Canopy Cross Brace here, and Canopy Cross Brace, let me zoom down there, right down there. Let me explain what that is. So they include in the kit some fiberglass rod, and I've got two pieces cut to length. The top one is for the front, the smaller one is, bottom one is for the rear. So what we're doing is we want to first establish a proper width, which I've done. And the way we do it is we just make sure the canopy is just slightly inside the dotted lines. And if you look down there, you can see it. So that's good. So anyway, we've got that in place. And now I just need to go ahead and figure out a way how we're going to fit this on there with the canopy sitting down. So this is a little tricky. I remember doing it as a kid, but I don't remember putting it on the plans. I think I just wound up cutting the piece, squeezing it together and gluing it, and that was pretty much it. And I do remember attaching it correctly. It did open and close properly. But I'm trying to be a little more exact this time around. Make sure we do this, get this to work correctly. Especially considering we're going to be opening it quite a bit to get the batteries in and out, so to make sure it's functioning properly and it isn't going to fall off or fall apart. All right. One other thing that we did too, we had to take some measurements. So if you look right down here, this edge here, that's where the wood sits, the wood rails that the canopy will sit on. So we measured from this edge of the wing, let me zoom back just a little bit, this edge of the wing all the way to here, and we did that in a couple spots too on the plans. And you'll notice here on the plane, let me get a shot of it from behind, you can see the marks I made there, the red marks, and then came down a little further and some additional red marks there. And then finally on the back of the wing, there's the additional red marks as well. So the idea is that if you look at it from above, you can see how it kind of provides that curve, because as the canopy comes further towards the back of the plane, it curves inward more. So I'm trying to get it as exact as possible. Anyway, so that's where we're at this time. Let's see what I can do with regards to those cross braces. Get those attached. And more to come. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Here's what I'm talking about, by the way, number 2. That's what I'm working on at the moment. Okay. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, I'm going to share with you an idea I came up with. So as I mentioned previously, we had to make some measurements here per the plans to make sure that we had our railing, if you will, in the correct position. Well, the trick was trying to figure out how do we keep it in the correct position. Pins. Just simply put the pins in the measured marks back here. We made 3 measured marks, as you can see. And then I went ahead, because the side of this railing has to be flush with the sides of the, with this part of the wing. You can see it right there, that triangular piece, plus the sides of the fuselage. We just went ahead and just put the pins in place, and then wherever the greatest curve was, which happened to be right here, we just pulled it, and it got into perfect alignment. And a little CA, and that worked great. So what we'll do is we CA'd it up to roughly right about there, and then skip this gap, and then just put a little bit there. We're going to make a cut here where the wing lifts off, so it's nice and even. And we don't want to put any glue here for fear we might glue the wing in place. So that worked extremely well. We're going to try it on the opposite side. Hopefully it works just equally, just as well. And just wanted to share that with you. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, you can see we have our railings in place, and it just worked perfectly. Went really well. Real happy with that. So I just wanted to show that to you real quick. All right, so more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update with the installation of the canopy and the cowling, I've gone ahead and I've trimmed off a lot of the additional flange around the cowling itself. You're looking at the top portion here, and here's the bottom portion. Right now we're still working on the bottom portion. There's a very, very faint line of demarcation. You might be able to see it. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, it's very, very faint. It's so hard to see. I even have difficulty seeing it unless you tilt it into the correct light. Anyway, what we're doing to go ahead and just kind of, when you cut it a little bit outside the line, and then you just take either like some sandpaper. I've been using 80 grit and 120 grit. Or what you can do, what's worked really well, is a low, fine grit a drum sander for your Dremel. So that's what we're working on with regards to cowling. Now let's talk canopy. The canopy came out really well. You can see we've got our cross braces there, as you can see. Now it turns out that we're going to need a third one. We're going to need to put one right in the middle, right in that area, because it's just a little too wide. So we got to squeeze it together a little bit to get it to fit. Now, after putting the cowling or the canopy on the plane, we're going to put the brace right over top of this. It's going to be attached to the canopy, but it's going to line up with this dihedral brace here. So the additional brace on the canopy to help bring it a little closer together, that's where we're going to place it. So we'll put it back on the plans like you saw before, and go ahead and bring the canopy together, and then that'll be all set, and then we'll continue with our installation of the canopy. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, you can see we've got our middle cross brace there. We're using carbon fiber for that. So we've got it laid out, and we're gonna let that dry. Use some 30-minute epoxy to hold it in place, and that should take care of the problem, or take care of getting it glued. Anyway, so that's done. You can see also we have our cowling over here. That has been fully trimmed. I mentioned it before, but we've got them trimmed, sanded down, looks real nice. And then we'll work on getting the cowling fitted. All right, so that's it for now. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, I want to show you our center brace is in place, and it went on really well. As it turned out, I just happened to be looking at the side view of the plans, and lo and behold, there actually is supposed to be a center brace right in that very spot. The top view of the plans, when I took another look at them, they did have the brace there. So anyway, so there's actually 3 braces going across the canopy. 1, 2, and 3 right there. Okay. All right, so that's dried. We're going to go ahead and begin the process of mounting the canopy. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, we're going to be cutting out the 1/4 inch balsa frame. This is going to go in the back portion of the canopy, and let me show you here on the plans where it'll sit. It'll wind up sitting right here in this section on top of the wing. So that'll hold that rear portion of the canopy right there. So we're going to go ahead and cut that out, and more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, let me go ahead and show you a couple things. First of all, we've gone through, we have our piece cut in the back that's going to support our canopy, and that'll wind up fitting back here in this area. In addition, what we're doing here is we're also going to go ahead and we're just going to very lightly cut a little, trim some of this area off just beneath the canopy. You can see we've drawn a line where the canopy is going to sit. We want to get it so it's nice and flush with this piece right here. And to give you a perspective on the plans, you can see it right there, where it says undercut the balsa to fit the canopy flush. That's what we're working on right now. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you can see here we've got our little ridge cut in place, which is great. Now, the next part we need to do is we need to do a little filling in here. So, let me get this centered a little bit. There we go. Okay, so you can see the gaps that are here and here. So we're going to take a little 1/4 inch balsa, kind of build it up, and then we've got to sand it and shape it to help fill in that little gap right there. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you can see we've got our filler pieces here, and you can see how nice it looks on the side, how it just fills it right in. And of course, keep in mind where my fingers are, all that'll be painted. You won't even see this extra piece of wood in there. But you can see it over here as well, how it kind of finishes it off. So that's the thing about building airplanes. We're at the point now where it's all the little tiny things, the finishing pieces. So anyway, that's where we're at the moment. And we're going to go ahead and continue with attaching the canopy. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, we're looking at the hinges that have been attached to the canopy. Let's talk about this for a little bit. Now you'll notice there's already notches that were already cut into the actual canopy itself. You can see it there, and that's important so it clears the center pin. Now the key thing to keep in mind is when you're putting these on, you want to try, I'm going to get as close as I can. You can see the center pin right there, the little metal pin. You want to try to get it so it lines up just with the outer edge of the canopy, where the outer edge is located, and that should be on both. You want to try to get these as straight as possible. Think of a door in your house, and if you look at the pins, you'll notice the pins that hold the hinges in place, they're all perfectly in line. Well, that's the same principle here. You've got to make sure that they're in line. Now I use just a very small couple drops of thin CA on each hinge to hold it in place. However, I am definitely going to go through and also put a little small screw through, drill a hole and put a little small screw through each of those holes to help hold those hinges in place. The biggest concern is that if there's a great deal of stress while in flight for any particular reason, it could, or wind were to, for whatever reason, get underneath the canopy, could easily just lift it up and rip it right off. So you want to really secure your canopy in place and never ever think that it won't come off in flight. Always think of it as it will come off in flight, and prepare for that while you're building the airplane. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, you can see we've got our canopy hinged, which is really nice. It does open up quite nice. Wow, you can see, swings right open. Now we'll have to do some trimming, of course, to get it open up a little bit more. I mean, I can crank it all the way over like this. 90 degrees is really what I want, because that way I can get at the bolts there in the rear, and of course down there as well. We need the space for the screwdriver. But outside of that, it's perfect. Fits nice. Nice fit up here too as well, as you can see. So that went really well. Very happy about that. So we're just got to do some trimming right along these edges here. Just kind of smooth that out a little bit. Make some clearance. All right. Very good. And more to come. All right, friends. As we continue our update here, I went ahead and I did a little trimming along the railings here on the side to help provide some additional clearance. And now when you look at the canopy, you can see it's a perfect 90-degree opening, which is great because that gets the canopy out of the way, so you can go ahead and get to the wing bolt here and the wing bolt back there. Now what we did is, if you look at the railing here on the side, you can see that's nice and square, but let's look at the railing on the opposite side, and you can see how we angled it quite a bit. Okay, now you want to leave the area around the hinges, keep those square, as you can see, because you need the wood there to help hold the hinges in place. And you can also tell on this side how we've cleared a lot of it away. If you look along where the canopy meets the railing, you can see there's just a very small amount of clearance, probably maybe 1/32, just enough to allow the canopy to sit upright. It's really not going to tilt any further because of the hinges. Whoops, because of the hinges. Now our next thing that we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking the piece here that we cut earlier, and we're going to wind up, that'll go back here, but that's going to get glued to that part of the canopy. You can see where my finger is right there. And eventually what we'll do is, you can see the scribe line right there. This part of the canopy is going to be cut away, permanently glued in place. Okay, so that'll be the next step. So we're looking at, this is where we are in terms of the steps, by the way. We're on number 5. That's what we're going to be getting to. And you can see the others there as well. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue update here on the installation of the canopy, we're really getting down to the last couple steps. Let's talk about the next step that we're about ready to do. So as I mentioned before, we cut out the piece back here, this back piece, direct out of the plans. That's a 1/4 inch balsa. And you can see right there, let me zoom in a little bit, you can see that little lip here in the back. That's where it's going to get glued to, and then eventually what's going to happen once this is glued in place, you can see the scribe line right here as well. It will be, this portion here will be cut away. We'll be using a very fine saw to cut it. I would normally use a hot knife, but it melts it too much, and we want to keep a nice tight joint between these two halves. So eventually this will be the only portion, this will be the only portion of the canopy that will wind up flipping up, and this will stay stationary. So we're going to glue this on. Now we're going to be using Zap Canopy Glue. You can use RC56 as well. That's still out there. They both work in the same fashion. The nice thing about this is that it really is made for canopies. It dries clear. You don't get that frostiness. I really probably should have used it here on the piece. I used the foam safe CA thinking that because it's foam safe, usually you don't have this frostiness, but that was obviously not the case. So when you're using this, you don't have to worry about that. It dries clear, and it's also great because, as you know, when you're outside, you know, a canopy underneath can get pretty hot, and it doesn't pull away in the heat or anything like that. It's just really wonderful. It does take 3 hours to cure, but 24 hours to fully cure. You need to let it sit for the full 24. So just a friendly FYI. Oh, and it's also flexible too. I meant to tell you that. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead, glue this in place. We're going to be using some blue tape. By the way, the blue tape is down here because we don't want to glue that wood piece in place just yet. Okay, not just yet. We will in a little bit after we get the canopy cut away. And then we're going to use some blue tape here to help hold that in place. And I'll get a quick video just to show you what it looks like in a little bit after we get it all set up. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, let's take a look here. First of all, that wonderful bag of rocks. I tell you, I can't recommend enough. Get yourself a bag of rocks, folks. It's like the heavy version of a bag of peas. Anyway, you can see we've got RC56 in there. It's perfect. We just put a light bead on there. Don't want to put too much. Don't want it sticking to the fuselage. The bag of rocks just pushed it down just perfectly, so it's really adhering on all sides. I just put a little extra tape on there just to make sure that we got a good tight seal all around. Anyway, we're gonna let that sit overnight. Don't touch it, and then tomorrow we'll go ahead and we will cut off that rear portion of the canopy as I mentioned previously. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, let's talk about what we're doing here. So you can see we've got a scribe line that's here, and as I've been working on cutting it, you can see we've already started going and cutting it. I started with a very, very sharp number 11 X-Acto blade to go ahead and do that. And then we're using a very, very, very fine X-Acto blade to get through, and that's doing a really nice job. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to cut this loose, so this part right here will be permanently in place as I mentioned before, and then we'll get this to flip up. And we're going to add a little flange on the inside, which you'll see in just a little bit. So anyway, all right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue update with the canopy installation, let's talk about what we did here. So right off the bat, if you look here, I removed the fiberglass rod that was sitting all the way back here. The problem was when you would go to open and close, it was getting in the way of the canopy here, and you couldn't open or close the rear portion that we cut away. You couldn't open or close it properly. So I just went ahead and before I removed the fiberglass rod, I took a carbon fiber rod and I did something a little different. Instead of just attaching it to the sides like we did with these other pieces up there in the middle and in the front, actually I drilled holes, and I passed the rod through, carbon fiber rod. I went through and I sanded it so it was nice and shapely, or matches the shape on the outside, excuse me, not shapely. And then once this was glued in place, I then removed the fiberglass rod, and it worked perfect. So a recommendation to you folks, when you go to put these rods in for the canopy, I would recommend just drilling a couple holes on the side, and then putting it over top of the plans, squeezing it so it's the proper width. Squeezing it so it's the proper width. And then just go ahead and put a little glue on the outside of the canopy where the rod sticks out, and just cut away the excess, because that's what I did here, and it worked really well. So right now what we're trying to do, we're trying to glue this piece back in place. There's not a perfect fit, you know. Obviously you cut away, you can see, you know, it's not great. It's not good at all, but we'll see if we can fill that in, that big gap there, with maybe some wood or something. But you know, this is not an optimal way of putting in a canopy. I've got to say, the first time I ever done anything like this, and I can tell you it'll be the last time I ever do anything like this, because I had a different idea in mind. Anyway, nonetheless, we're going to go ahead, we're going to glue this piece in place, make whatever adjustments are needed so we get a better fit and finish. So anyway, more to come. One more thing, folks, just real quick. So you can see there, let me zoom in a little bit. There's quite a gap there between the actual canopy and the wood. So I'm gonna wind up going through and probably just running some 1/16 or maybe 1/32 underneath there to help help get that better position. Anyway, so more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, let's talk about what we got here. So you can see, if you look on the left there, a little 1/16 inch piece we put in there to help fill in that gap. And then we went ahead and piped in some of the canopy glue on both sides. This pipette, picked it up off of Amazon. Fantastic, absolutely perfect for the job. As you can see, just sucked the glue right up and was able to just take it and just slip it right in there like so. And it made a perfect line, perfect bead. So we'll let that sit for a full 24 hours. And then after that, we're just going to do a couple more things to help hold this down. Some hardwood blocks on probably here and here on this side, just to hold the canopy down. We'll wind up using 4 screws total. We've already got 2 holes drilled up front where we're putting 2 screws, and we'll put 2 on the side, and then the canopy will be 100% finished. I tell you what I am going to do, one more thing, is I'm not going to glue the hinges in place on the fuselage. I am going to take the advice of the instructions, and you can see them there, and use a screw. Just screw them in place, because if I ever have to remove the canopy for any reason, it's a lot easier to do it that way, and it will not be coming off the plane at all, because it will be screwed in place not only in those 2 places there, but of course, as I mentioned a second ago, we're going to have 4 screws total holding the canopy down. So anyway, more to come. All right, friends, you can see we've got our rear portion of the cowling glued in place. So that's all set. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my gluing job on this rear portion has been far less than stellar. You can see we've got some CA marks here. We got some of the clear flexible canopy glue here and down here, but it really won't matter because we're gonna wind up painting the outside of it anyway, so it won't be visible. But anyway, that's done. That works perfect. You can see we close our canopy. It's pretty much a perfect fit. We'll go through this end, we'll get screwed down, and you can see it fits really actually pretty nice for the most part. So we're done with that portion right there. We're just gonna put, as I mentioned before, some hard points here and here to go ahead and to have a spot to screw the canopy down in place. And then we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna shift our focus over to the cowling itself. All right, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, let's talk about what you're seeing here. We have got 2 hard points, one right there and one right there. And what we did is we took, let me zoom in, there we go. We took a little spruce. It's like 1/2 inch spruce here, but it's a 1/2 inch wide, but 1/4 inch thick. And went ahead and just CA'd them in place, and that's gonna help hold the screws. Now what I did here, let me shoot this from a different angle. You can see, if I come down just right, it's a little tough to see. Here we go, there we go, that's better. You can see here we use some triangular stock there on the bottom to help hold that piece in place. And we just CA'd those pieces, and that'll help keep that in place so the canopy doesn't get yanked off. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna just go ahead and drill our holes. And then the only thing left to do really is just kind of put a little screw right here to help hold these hinges in place. And we're 100% done with the canopy, that is, and all we gotta do is paint it. So that's it for canopy install. And now we're gonna go ahead and dive deep into the cowling install. All right, more to come.